Hey guys, what's up? Again here, coming at you from Beijing, and today's topic is about expats fleeing China. If you watched the news today or YouTube, you might see a lot of news about this topic, saying that expats are fleeing China because of zero COVID and other reasons, that the Chinese government wants to kick foreigners out of China and so on. And sometimes when I post videos showing that I'm in China, people are asking me why I'm still here and how I can handle the situation while still being here. So today I thought I'd talk a little bit about this topic. So right now in China you have around 800,000 foreigners registered, which is around 0.06% of the population. Roughly half those foreigners come from Myanmar and are working in agriculture in South China. Another big part is Vietnamese, North Koreans, also involved in agriculture. Somewhere around 80,000 are Europeans and roughly 50,000 are Americans. Although those numbers might have changed because there's no updated census. The last census was made in 2020, so at the beginning of COVID, right before all the restrictions and also before the lockdowns in Shanghai. Based on some estimates, the number of expats, let's say Western expats, in China have halved since the beginning of the pandemic. Even before that, there was a decrease. So between 2010 and 2020, the two big censuses of foreigners in China, there was a reduction with around 40% in Beijing and roughly 20% in Shanghai. So it's not a new thing that foreigners are leaving China. It's been going on for a long time for different reasons. Going back to, let's say, the long-term reasons, you have to look at each group differently. So basically in China you have three groups of expats, and I mean Western expats. One was the students / interns. Another one was English teachers. And the third one is like business people like me. So for the first category, students and interns, they were quite stable, I would say, until the pandemic started. And at that point, basically, it became impossible to get a student visa or intern visa. And now they're down to zero. So that category is gone completely. For English teachers, before the pandemic, but especially afterwards, of course, it became more difficult to come here and get a visa. But the government also became a lot more restrictive with the type of people that got work visas to be English teachers. In the past, a very big part of the English teachers were actually not native speakers of English, and they didn't even have bachelor degrees, no qualifications. And the government changed that policy a couple of years ago, basically saying that you have to be a native speaker to be an English teacher, as well as having a bachelor degree and so on. So a lot of English teachers who were not qualified had to leave. And then they were not replaced because it was difficult to find enough qualified teachers to begin with. The third category for business people was probably quite stable up until before the pandemic. What changed was that it was getting more difficult for junior people to get business visas or work visas. So people with less than 2 years work experience were not allowed to come here. And in general, it became a bit more tricky to get the work visas. So yeah, we had this reduction for a long time. And then, of course, with the pandemic, it became very difficult to travel to China. Suddenly you needed a personal invitation letter to get a work visa here, which had to be approved by local government and so on. The rules were eased a little bit in the past 6 months, so now it's actually easier again to get a work visa. But you still have to deal with the quarantine, with the difficulties to get flights, and so on, right? So it's still difficult. And of course, with the pandemic in general, it became very hard for foreigners to come here and to travel here and leave here so as well. So the pandemic definitely played into it. Expats were leaving and were then not being replaced. But actually, for much of the time during the pandemic, the expats in China were not suffering that much. I mean, things were quite good for us here because our lives were normal pretty much most of 2020 and 2021, when the rest of the world was going through lockdowns and people were getting infected, getting very sick. Because COVID in China, I mean, we had zero COVID here, so things were actually not that bad. Life was quite normal and quite easy. It was really only with the lockdowns this year that became more regular, more frequent. And especially, of course, the one in Shanghai, we have by far the most expats in China, especially the category of business expats who have the highest income and who are the most influential. They took a big hit. And now you see a whole new level of exodus where even the people that stayed before the pandemic have also started to leave. So that's why you had this reduction of roughly half the expats just in the past 2 years. And I think what you also have to keep in mind is that for the expats in Shanghai, many of them were sent here to China with nice packages. You know, they had nice housing allowances and they had a pretty easy life in Shanghai, kind of getting the best of both worlds. They were never really, primed for a more difficult life in China. For them it was always easy, and them being locked in their apartments for 2 months straight was definitely quite challenging. And they basically, many of them just couldn't take it and they gave up. And of course, being an expat in China during zero COVID, it also means that you can't travel, you can't go to your home country very easily because there's so few flights, it's so expensive. You have to do quarantine when you come back, even though now it's only 7 days basically in most places. But it's still very uncertain because the policy could change at any time. So maybe today if you leave it's okay to come back, but in a few weeks it's not allowed again. So people are very concerned to leave and then come back after that for a vacation, let's say. So let's say that the premium of working in China has increased a lot. So in the past, having a slightly higher income than you would have overseas, it was maybe worth it to live here and work here. But today, if you can make almost the same money in Europe and the US, you probably would not choose to stay here unless you have some personal reasons. The people that are staying, that I can see, are people that have been to China a long time already. They've been through a lot. They can handle difficulties a little bit better. They have stable jobs. Many of them have Chinese spouses. They might have kids here who are maybe half Chinese. They can somehow weather the storm a little bit better than expats who are just here, maybe with an expat partner, expat kids. For them it's been a bit more difficult, and I see many more of those people leaving. And then they're not being replaced. Partly because the talent pool of expats in China has decreased a lot, obviously, so it's very hard to find a qualified replacement. And also because it's been difficult to convince expats in overseas to come to China to work here because of what happened. So yeah, that's the situation. It is true that expats are leaving, all for different reasons. For me personally, I've been to China for about 15 years. I have a Chinese wife, I have kids who are half Chinese, I have a stable job. I make a lot more money here than I would probably make back in Europe. So I have no plan to leave. I'm pretty happy here with my life. I'm living in Beijing, and I didn't really experience the hard lockdown in Shanghai. but I have experienced rolling soft lockdowns in the past couple of years. You know, once every few months there's a new flare-up of cases and they have a soft lockdown. They close the restaurants, the nightclubs. You can't travel anywhere. So I've been through that a lot. Of course, I miss to go back to my home country, see my parents, you know, live in Europe. I haven't been back for 3 years now. But again, it's a price I think you have to pay to live in China right now and to stay here. And there are many benefits that outweigh the bad ones. It's still a very cool country to live. It's very interesting, you know, career-wise, culture-wise. I still enjoy it. In a place like Beijing, you still have a lot of Western, let's say, oases as well. So you can have Western food, you can have Western coffee, if you feel like that. If you want to have a break from, let's say, like a pure Chinese environment, you still have that here. On a personal note, yeah, I see that there are way less expats, and I see that as well that, for example, even a place like Beijing, people are a lot more curious about me, especially kids will like point, and I get a lot more attention just by being a foreigner here because there are so much less of us now than there used to be. And if I go to a place like Tianjin, for example, a second-tier city, it's obviously way more. In a place like Tianjin, I can spend like a whole day downtown, in the subway, in crowded shopping malls, without seeing a single expat. And of course, there you also get a lot more attention, which is overall positive. I mean, it's not negative attention generally. People are just curious and friendly. So I don't see like a lot of xenophobia or racism against foreigners. Even though the political climate, of course, has become more antagonized in the past couple of years. But overall, my life here is good, so I have no plan to leave. In China, I've had good times, I've had bad times. I came here as basically a fresh graduate, had to work my way up, living in smaller cities, quite rough environment. And I'm really enjoying my life I have here today, so yeah, things are not great, but I can't complain that much either. So anyway, that's my 5 cents on this topic. If you have any input of your own or any questions, just let me know in the comments. So that's all for today. Take care, guys. See you next time.